Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the main card, and I greet you in the name of the returning page, and also in the name of the arrival of the Bludgeon Brothers, as well as the great chemistry between Corey Graves and Byron Saxton on SmackDown Live. And I greet you guys in the name of all those three things, when you put it that way. You know, I wanted to also greet you guys in the name of the "This is awesome" chant that popped up for Mojo Rawley this past SmackDown Live, but I decided to leave that one out. So I greet you in the name of those three things. And we are on the main card. We are, of course, the main card is all about wrestling, ladies and gentlemen, and that is exactly what we're going to be talking about right now. This is the main card, and the first topic that we're going to be talking about today, or tonight rather, because it's nighttime over here for all those guys who don't know. If you're listening to me from another part of the world, just know that over here right now it is currently 10:20 at night. So it's nighttime, deep into the nighttime, and you're listening to the main card, the wrestling show, the first ever wrestling show in South Africa, hosted by yours truly, Seyda, the Chosen King. All right, so the first thing we're going to be talking about today has to do with just literally the fact that the League of Nations, it has to do simply with the League of Nations. Now, for those of us who might not know who the League of Nations was, and I'm not talking about the League of Nations, what the UN used to be. No, although this could be looked at in that manner, which could explain the name at the same time. I'm talking about the League of Nations in the sense that the League of Nations, we will know it as the team of Sheamus, the team of Wade Barrett, the team of Rusev, as well as Alberto Del Rio in the WWE. Now, the League of Nations was formed by these gentlemen, and the League of Nations literally comprised of these guys throughout the I think it was leading up to WrestleMania 32. Nah? I just want to be 100% sure of my dates. But they were formed in the lead up to WrestleMania 32, and it was a very formidable team, as we all remember. Yes. Sorry. It was a very formidable team, as we all remember. And their main rival, if I can put it that way, was Roman Reigns, and we know for a fact that, but they always used to go after Roman Reigns, to the point where Mr. McMahon even literally just sent them against Roman Reigns. But what I was reading when it comes to the League of Nations is that they were always their main reason for being was that they were just there to get over Roman Reigns, or to get Roman Reigns over, not get over Roman Reigns. They were just there to get Roman Reigns over, because we all know the Roman Reigns issue where, people still boo him. So they were there to get Roman Reigns over, and the sad part about that is literally the fact that Roman Reigns, sure, he's the guy that's been chosen in the WWE. Basically. So that's not that that's not sad. I was nearly eating my words there for a moment. English is not my first language, by the way. So Roman Reigns is the chosen guy in the WWE. He's the chosen guy to be the face of the WWE, right? So we get that. But the sad part when it comes to the League of Nations is the fact that you've got a superstar like Sheamus, you've got Alberto Del Rio, you've got Rusev, and then you've got Wade Barrett as well, who was King Barrett at the time. Now, what got me really, really intrigued by the League of Nations was the fact that they were very, very believable as a stable. They were very believable as a team. They were very believable as this unit of guys, because you had a great balance in it, where you had Sheamus, who did not have that much experience when it came to comparing him to Alberto Del Rio, but the fact that Sheamus was the leader. And you also had... You put Sheamus and Wade Barrett in the same bracket, not in the sense because they're Europeans, but in the sense that now they've got pretty much the same amount of experience. Then you add someone like Rusev, who has got less experience than the two above that I've just named. And then you have Alberto Del Rio, who can literally serve as the how can I put it? He can serve as the more experienced member of the group so as to help guide them, but he's not the leader because Sheamus was put as the leader of the League of Nations. So you got these four guys who've got like a perfect mix of people who can literally just be they're representatives of different countries, but then you have a way to infiltrate different markets when it comes to these guys. Alberto Del Rio can infiltrate the South American market, particularly Mexico. Rusev, you have him in Bulgaria, Sheamus in Ireland, and Wade Barrett in England, and all three Europeans in Europe in general. The thing about the League of Nations, it's literally a case of there was so much potential there that it's just a shame that it had to die out the way it did. Because I remember there was a time when they made their entrance. The first time they made their entrances, where they had their own customized T-shirts, and each T-shirt said something about that specific superstar, that particular superstar. The one that I, liked the most was Alberto Del Rio's one, which said the pride of Mexico. You know what I mean? Because he was exactly that. He was the pride of Mexico. And as JBL kept saying was that Alberto Del Rio is Mexico's greatest, did I say export? Yes, Mexico's greatest export, if I'm not mistaken. So when it came to these guys, they were very believable. And it was literally a case of it had so much potential to go much further. It had a lot of potential to go even as far as Evolution, for instance. I'm not going to use the Shield because yes, you had the Shield who were technically like the number one team in all of WWE, the number one stable in all of the WWE. But then could you really put a world championship on one of the members of the Shield at the time? And I don't think you could, because the Shield was literally a team. They weren't individuals at the time. When they were the first incarnation of the Shield, they weren't Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Dean Ambrose, three individuals who you saw as stars. They were literally a team of guys. They were the Shield. You saw them, you see one of them, you think of the Shield. You didn't think of that specific person. But when the League of Nations came out, oh wow, okay, technology. When the League of Nations came out, you saw them as four distinct individuals. You saw them as a team, sure, but then it was a team of four individuals who I think you could have put a world title around any of those guys. Not okay. Let me be a bit more realistic. In the long run, maybe you could have put a world title around Rusev, depending on how much over he would get with the crowd. But then among Sheamus, Alberto, and King Barrett, you could have put a world title on Sheamus, because he was at the time even still a former world champion. You definitely could put a world title around Alberto Del Rio, because he was also himself as a former world champion. But at the same time, you had the potential of Wade Barrett and him also getting a world championship, right? So you any of these guys could be seen as a world champion. So you had the potential to get two of them to win the tag team championships. You had the potential to get one of them to win the Intercontinental Championship. And then you had the potential to have one of them, particularly whoever must be the leader at the time, which in this case would be Sheamus, but then maybe, just maybe, actually, Sheamus having the World Championship would actually be a great thing. I was thinking of Alberto Del Rio, but then Sheamus as well would not be a bad fit. You would put the World Championship around one of those guys, and it would literally be a stable that could literally, I thought, this is just my opinion as a fan, that these guys could carry the show. And all of them being heels, you would have them, having the faces running after them and trying to get those championships. And obviously the faces eventually might get over. The League of Nations, the sad thing about it is just that it was such a great concept. And there was just so much potential there. You would wish, and I myself do so, and I know a lot of fans do at the same time, you wish that we saw more of that. I wish that the WWE could have done more with the League of Nations than what was done between the period of like November and April of when they were around. And it's unfortunate the way it just fizzled out at the very end, you know what I mean? Because you had Wade Barrett, who decided that he's not going to renew his contract, and he saw his contract out, and then they just disbanded after that, the three of them. It was just sad, man. It was just very sad. It was just potential that was not taken advantage of. You know what I mean? It was just potential that was like, only if they could have just built from that. And I think, me as a fan, if I were to be a couch booker, if I can put it that way, I would literally take the victory that they had in WrestleMania against the New Day, build from that. But obviously the Legends came in, and then they, went over on them. The Legends, that is, they went over on the League of Nations. But then, if you were to build from someplace, you build from that victory at WrestleMania, because that's the biggest stage there is when it comes to wrestling. And then you just take it from there. So I, for one, I feel very sad that the League of Nations, had to fizzle out the way it did. But, unfortunately, it is what it is. And if it could ever happen again, man, I could definitely see myself buying one of those T-shirts. And who knows? Who knows of the possibilities that could have been there when it comes to, merchandise. Because those T-shirts were, how can I put it? You saw them, and you just thought, well, this is just me, I suppose. You saw them, and you just thought to yourself, maybe, you could also wear a T-shirt like that to represent your country. You know what I mean? Because looking at those four shirts, you just think of the superstars, and you see the pride of Mexico, né? And then you see the British bullhammer, for instance, and you see the Celtic warrior as well. You see the Bulgarian brute, and each T-shirt had its own flag underneath. I always liked the way Alberto Del Rio cut up his. It was always so cool. So you have that, and these T-shirts could have sold very well in those respective countries, because you would get people behind those respective people. You know what I mean? So if there was ever, I would literally be, when I finally make it in the WWE, I would literally love to be part of the reincarnation of the League of Nations, like a reincarnation that can literally go the distance. You know what I mean? To be along these lines and literally be inspired by this. Take that over. Even if it's with actually Sheamus and Rusev, depending, of course, if Wade Barrett's going to be back there, I would literally be part of that. Just be the king of Africa, man. Just imagine that. Imagine having the Celtic warrior, the Bulgarian brute. You also have the British bullhammer, and you also have, of course, the king of Africa. That would be me, So I'm just, you see, but it just makes you think along those lines. It just makes you, it touches you. In my language, we say, it touches you to just want to just be behind these guys, Yes, they're bad guys, but if they would have gone the distance, I think there would have been such a thing, in the sense that people might have actually, got behind it so well. Even people who are not Europeans or South Americans. In this case, referring to Americans. They might have gotten behind the League of Nations in the long run because it would have been the cool thing. But that's just my opinion in this manner. And I don't know, man. It's like, I just wish it was more. I just literally put it like that. I just wish it was more than what it ultimately ended up becoming. From the reports that I've read, like I said in the beginning, it was literally just there to get Roman Reigns over. And that's just the long short of it, I suppose. But I, for one, will always remember the League of Nations. I, for one, will always remember the British bullhammer, King Barrett. I, for one, will always remember the Celtic warrior, Sheamus. I, for one, will always remember the Bulgarian brute, Rusev. And I will remember the pride of Mexico, Alberto Del Rio. The League of Nations.